other per environment. And those are not true, are they?
There is all kind of three-letter codes. All right. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for being here. So today's meeting is about this proposed sales tax in Overland Park, and I hope I got everybody who's wanted to log in online there. And I'm gonna put this video on the Facebook as well. So what are we talking about? How much money we are talking about? Hypothetically, $165 million for over 10 years. So the amount is about $16.5 million based on calculation today. But obviously the sales tax could go up or down. But that's the point of reference that we have. So, and if the community votes yes, it's $165 million over 10 years that you will pay. So, as I have mentioned before, somehow advance this slide. Sam, can you advance this for me? You just want to go here and so the browser clicker. So my position here has not been to say vote for it or vote against it. I'm just trying to provide some level of information about why we are here, that we need to, in my opinion, constantly ask more money from our constituents. And what do you get for this? If you voted yes, what do you get for it? Because you go to any store, you want to buy something, it should be clear what you are getting. So the history, my constituency, Ward 5, and Councilman Passer is here as well. And thank you, Councilman Moshe, for being here. Number one complaint in our ward about infrastructure has been chips. There is no doubt in my mind that the number one complaint in Ward 5 has been when you come and talk about infrastructure, the chips. And this goes back about 10 years ago. And a lot of work in this, putting this information together was done by Sheila Rodriguez, which is our friend and Sam's friend. And we know that she has been very passionate about it. So this is a slide out of her presentation. It has been an issue for a lot of people in Overland Park and Ward 5, and whoever has had chips in front of their house for a long time. It causes injuries, it damages property, and it brings down the value of the house. Jeff recently sent me an article as a cancer scientist, and Jeff is also a biologist, that even hints of the fact that some of this material might have significant carcinogenic effects. So there is no question that the number one concern has been. Therefore, any committee, any tax, any money that city wants to absorb from the perspective of a lot of people in Overland Park should go to their first priority, which is remediation and replacing chip seal with something else. I'm not saying we don't have other necessary expenditure, we do, but the priorities of the government should match the priorities of it. So I'm not going to go about demonizing chip seal because it's quite obvious. I just wanted to put, and all of these pictures there is with the permission of the parents that the pictures of the there. Next, please. Thank you so much. So this is so about 2 years ago, in the middle of actually the mayoral race, we had this chip seal issue, and what happened was that actually Curtis Food suggested in the middle of it that we put all of these on the shoulder of a group called Infrastructure Advisory. In my opinion, it was a technique to evade that conversation in the middle of the mayoral race. Okay. Because the conversation was very hot there. And now suddenly you say, okay, guys, stop talking about it. We're going to put it in advisory, in an advisory. I like advisory. In my job as a cancer scientist, we work with a lot of advisory groups, consultation groups, board review groups, grant review groups. But these are only good if there is equal representation of the population that advisory group is going to make a decision or is there. It's only logical when you put an advisory group that it represents, it samples the community that it's going to work for. So off the bat, we had a problem. There is only one person, and this thing needs to be formed a little bit I guess. Ward 5, there is only, this needs to come down there. There is only one person who's from Ward 5. Then you have 4 people from Ward 6. And Ward 5 was the hot objection bed for the chip seal issue. And you were not represented equally. And I brought that up to the chair of this group, Fred Spears, and Fred Spears on camera told me, yeah, I know it. And I'm not gonna do anything. Right off the bat, I have an advisory group which is killed it. And I respect everybody and anybody who was in that advisory. I have no problem with the people. I eliminated the names because it's not about the individual. But you put that together, the mayor chooses them one by one, no consultation with the council. I represent a ward, Sam represents a ward, Scott represents a ward. Each ward is about 20,000 people. Shouldn't we at least say, hey, this is the list of some people I'm gonna appoint, what do you guys think? I wanted Sheila Rodriguez on it because Sheila has done like a master's degree worth of research in this area. She applied, she was rejected. Why is it that you have somebody who puts 2 years in the chip seal story? You can't even offer her 1 out of 15 people, out of 14 people a spot there. So it's pseudo democracy. No, it's you choose something and elected, you select a group of people, and then we try to kind of like send it away that certain conclusions is going to come out, and it did. Okay. Next one, please. Thank you.
My understanding was that there was an outside consultant that was
Yeah.
working with that.
That's right,
to
yeah.
Facilitate,
Right.
whatever you want to call. Okay.
Yeah, there was, and I believe they were intruding too much on the conversation.
Well,
I was at the meetings twice, and I saw a bunch of stuff already typed up on the screen. And yeah, well, I'm kind of like a moderator and bring the stuff, but at least I didn't like the level of conduction that mediator was imposed.
because, you know, when sitting on the land use subcommittee for the comprehensive plan, I felt that the same thing was happening there, that the outside consultants were imposing their views and driving you in a certain direction. Instead of letting the group as a whole kind of drive what they wanted to talk about and what they wanted to focus on. And we kept being redirected.
And also, I saw staff argue with this group. The previous director of public works, I saw him arguing for chip seal and against banning chip seal in the code. And a group of advisory people, let them advise you. I don't want to know the point of the staff. I hear about that. I know what they say. They have been doing it for the last 30 years. I want to see what the advisory group said, but I saw constantly, oh, no, we can't do that. So this is a letter that I think a formation of this letter was signed by Sheila, and I think there is a version of it signed by you as a candidate. That this is the concern of the Ward 4, Ward 5, and I believe anybody in this city which has chips with product. Next one, please. Okay. And this is one of the samples of about 6,000 people represented by 26, 24 HOAs signing letters sending to the city saying, just leave me alone, please. I don't want you to do anything. So that I'm providing this evidence as chip seal being the #1 concern for a good fraction of people in Maryland. It's not,
At our HOA to that.
there is a bunch of them added. This
Yeah,
is
I mean, we're 500 plus single family homes, so I mean, what does that represent?
all you need to be against chip seal is to have it in front of the top. Next one, please. So, okay, so this is, and then IAG came out. Then can you go one forward? IAG comes out and says about 64% of the people have no problem almost with chip. 58% strongly agree to continue the use of chip seal as a cost-effective prevention, blah, blah, blah. I dismiss that. It's not based on my experience with that. This 58%, I think they're There are people who won't have chip seal in Toronto. 8% are neutral. 8% disagree, 25% is strong base. So, you know, after that, we have, and that's why the chip seal was never been a top priority in the decisions and recommendations of ING. So let's go now back one slide. This is the kind of like how much money they want to spend where. Okay. So bridges, get money, neighborhood streets, that's where your chip seal, concrete, UBAS, mill and overlay, everything is. So they want to spend 16 million there. 2.5 million the storm, thoroughfares, $13 million. Pay attention to this. This is the level of funding right now for thoroughfares. They don't want to spend any penny more on thoroughfares. So if you have a problem with now, Metcalf, Grove, Antioch, nothing is gonna happen. If you think they should be expanded, if they can face traffic jam, nothing is gonna be happening about it in 10 years. Add to this the fact that we're gonna have a toll on Highway 69. And this applies to Union Trip Road. You're gonna have a toll on Highway 69. Some people, because they don't wanna pay the toll, are gonna try to use one of these thoroughfares. Right? Metcalf now, Antioch Road. So we're gonna have more pressure, but there is no money out of it. Then traffic management systems, $2 million. I guess that means lights. And we have a movement in the city of Overland Park. We yank out each and every traffic light and replace it with, what is it, signs or round. Yeah. Because you can't afford traffic lights, they are expensive. So then you got the sidewalks, bridges, curbs. 29 million, up $12 million. The stormwater maintenance. $2 million to $2.7 million. The city of Overland Park in the stormwater management is 50 years equivalent to $100 million. Traffic maintenance from 500,000 to 1. Okay. Next slide, and you're gonna pass
Just
that.
a real quick question on the maintenance on the streets and bridges. I mean, you look at that and say that. That's the biggest number in there, and it's also got one of the largest, it's got a very large increase dollar wise. Compared to what I saw like under residential. I mean. How did, who came up with those numbers? Somebody in the IAG,
It's the staff led, because it's hard for me to be, I wasn't there for every discussion, and if you guys were there, just let me know. But this must be a technical advice.
And some of it's going back at this, if Ferris and Scott may remember, they had a list of how much a city our size is spending on this, and it was best in class, doing okay. It's like a continuum, and we were like on the bottom on just about everything for cities our size, number of lane miles, all that. That the amount that we were underfunding, you know, it's not like, oh, we're gold plating streets or anything stupid. It was just, we were doing what you had to do to get by, and it was completely underfunded.
And it falls to previous and
that shows on the annual survey under.
Absolutely.
Annual maintenance where 60% of the respondent are keep infrastructure in good condition, extend useful life and stay ahead of it. Respondents very satisfied or satisfied with only 60%, a drop of 10% from 2018. That's huge. I mean, that says between 2018 and 2021, when the survey was conducted again, they lost 10% of the population thinking that the streets were satisfactory. So, I mean, things must be deteriorating very quickly.
So
And they are, because we're not putting any money into them and we're behind. We're behind in our maintenance schedule and, you know, we're doing a process that doesn't last, and that's why going to concrete makes so much sense. Because it's gonna last, and if we can do that, it may allow us at some point to try to catch up.
Rehabilitation, I mean, the complete reconstruction of residential streets, I know was stopped during COVID. But yet, this is, you know, we're well outside of that now, and yet If I looked at the numbers, only 0.25 lane miles of complete reconstruction is taking place this year. And it's like 141st and whatever the street was, it's like a very small little section of the street being redone. And we used to do so many lane miles every year, even that. I don't even know why the 2023 budget was so light on that.
Because they want to say that. One of the ways to get some more money out of people is to start on all that, so we will be able to comply with that. Let's go like next one. So, sorry, Matt, sorry. Here is, if you go back to that, I just need to tell you how I charted it. One more slide back.
Sure.
So I took,
There,
I'm gonna go back, one more, okay. So I did this for you guys, because I think this is an analysis level that is gonna tell us why we are in this shape and why you are not gonna get your chip seal fixed the way that you want. I took that number about neighborhood streets, SR. What fraction of that is to the total expenditure before? Okay? We did this for 30, 40, whatever, 50 years, right? And we ended up with this problem of $300 million backlog in residential. How much we were spending then on the residential streets? And how much we're gonna spend now on this new plan? So now let's go 2 slides forward. This is what's gonna happen. This is what happened before. The way it was. And the way it was caused a $300 million backlog, 200 lane miles a year chip seal in front of your street, extreme dissatisfaction of the people, and the picture of the kids with their faces torn apart. Undoubtedly, these are the facts. This is how much they put on this residential street. This is everything else. This is what they propose right now. If you spend $165 million more during the next, based on today's data. This is not a radical change. This is not a transformative change. This is what it is. And about 3 to 5 million of it, the way that actually I and Jeff Cox calculated last night, only $3 to $5 million in the best scenario goes to reduce chip seal to something else. Because in this piece of the pie, you have the concrete, you have the UBAS, you have everything that you were doing before anyways, and it's gonna be more expensive now and you have to pay for it. Yes, you are reconstructing hopefully a little bit more concrete in the streets. But if you are a constituent who wants chip seal dead and stopped, this much is gonna be put on it, about 1/5 of this or 1/6 of it.
That's what the city said.
That's all we're gonna put in, because why? Because it was not a priority for them to stop the chip seal. Because it was not a priority for them to stop the chip seal. So this is what the reality is gonna look like for the next minute.
To be fair, I didn't think this meeting would be saying chip seal. It seems like we're talking about something that is auxiliary to giving these politicians $165 million with no specificity whatsoever. There's no timeline for it. We're gonna work here and here and here. It's gonna cost this and this and this. So that the citizens can know to some extent where that money is going. Now we're just talking about one narrow aspect. I know it's the #1 priority. My neighborhood, Ward 2, they chip seal every 4 or 5 years. It's a mess. It winds up in my yard. There's no debate, I think, that it's a horrible, cheap process. But I'm much more concerned about allowing somebody in the infrastructure advisory committee to have access to $165 million in 10 years without a plan. I don't hear a plan.
Jim, they proposed the first table as a plan. That's what they proposed. I'm not defending it, right? But what I'm saying is that they say these are the categories
that we need to invest and we need more money. That's what they say, but if that's not specific enough as a plan.
Well, I mean, somebody somewhere assumed that, they're going to treat this section of, for example, Antioch or Lowell or Dawn or whatever. In this timeframe. Now, I don't know why that is such a challenge to the city staff. I assume that they have people that can do that. But in my mind, this is nothing more than a blank check. Politicians that have proven over and over again that the number one priority of the whole world is this, food security may or may not get addressed in a timely manner.
So you have a philosophical problem of implementation of this request, of this proposal. The way that it's proposed to be implemented altogether.
I don't see any communication.
Well, there is, and that's why I was bringing it up is, if that's what you guys are calculating and you think that's accurate. I filed a request and I know somebody filed a formal request on it too, trying to understand. How is the mayor and in other communications, the city was communicating that there's gonna be an 18%, immediate 18% reduction in the use of chip seal. And the verbiage around that has changed a few times, but now it's in 2025, the first full year of the sales tax going into effect. And the response I got back when I tried to get details on how that was calculated, and the point they had for that money was the sales tax initiative would allow us to expand our rehabilitation program by $9.8 million on an annual basis. 2022 $9.8 million equates to about an additional 30 lane miles of rehabilitation. She put down, the 2-inch mill and overlay, but rehabilitation also can be UVAS. Instead of chip seal. In fact, it would reduce our annual chip seal program by 30 lane miles or 18%, assuming funding keeps up with inflation. So they're trying to sell people on the fact that even though you've not approved any budgets, as far as I know, out to 2025,
Not yet.
that we're gonna somehow get an immediate 18% reduction in chip seal. So, and that goes back to the point when, you guys made, Scott, you wanted to have chip seal on a ballot. Jeff Cox wanted to dedicate money in the sales tax for chip seal. And I
We're
present,
talking about the end of chips.
yeah, to eliminate, and I was trying to say, I thought that this sales tax could fail. And I told the city council that, you guys remember that, but this initiative could fail because they are not specifying how that money was going to be used and how you could bring the closure, the end date to chip seal sometime in a reasonable time frame. And
I don't think 50 years qualifies.
no, there's quite some granted about that one.
And I think that's what Ferris is trying to point out.
Yeah.
Is the fact that, this sales tax is not totally dedicated to just elimination of chip seal. I mean, we got traffic, we got sewage, we got all that in here. And you're right, there's no budget that'll say this is the exact amount that's gonna go to remedy the situation. And that's the issue that we have right now, because we got everything in there. And down the road, depending on what comes up, that's where the money's gonna be spent, and we don't have that authority to say, we want to dedicate it to this. We tried that and we got outvoted, they said, this is how we're gonna do it.
And what's somewhat interesting is when we talked about got outvoted, we'd asked to go to 0.5 cent rather than 3 cents. So to some folks saying, you're asking for all this. I mean, really what I think it was Jeff Cox amendment was, let's go to half and let's get rid of chip seal. And dedicate some funds to that. So I think the big concern that I've got, and maybe this is more appropriate for later, is I think if you look at the infrastructure, all of this is needed, it's lacking. So then the question becomes of, one, should you be spending more with chip seal? And I think the answer, to get rid of chip seal, I think the answer to that's probably yes, but then two, where's the money gonna come from? Now. That's opening a major new can of worms, but.
But you know, the mayor, to your point, Sam, the mayor, was quick to point out to me. And I didn't go back and look at the actual vote total, but he was saying, even though. You got heard, Jeff got heard, your amendments, whatever did not pass, everybody still unanimously supported putting the sales tax on. Instead of,
On the ballot,
on the ballot.
it's the state law.
I understand, you guys unanimously supported, that,
State
and
law.
I don't know if it was.
Because that's
12-0.
where it should be, rather than us as the council making that decision for you. I at least wanted it on the ballot so that the people that we represent could say, no, we don't want this, and then we can move from it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was just gonna be, we're gonna take the money from here and there, and we're gonna make the decision. I don't think this decision should be made by us. It's a decision made by you. And, my thing was, and I was very adamant about it, that if we get this, we should drop the mill levy. And we should, we get into truth and taxation and, revenue neutral, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is that we should roll back our property taxes. We're making 29 million, I think, is about what the, proposed amount is.
69.
69.
Putting
16
up
and
almost
a half.
$30 million you can get between sales and property tax.
We're just talking about the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but my point being that if we, it shouldn't go hand in hand with the mill levy increase based on appraised value. And I'm against that. And I will vote against that because I don't think that we need to get extra money here and get extra money here. It defeats the purpose of going to a sales tax to the beginning. Yeah.
I would be surprised, very pleasant, if they approve the R&R. I think they would take that.
Well,
I would
I
be-
mean, it's an election year and I hope people look at that before the final vote is cast because,
R&R is decided on by us. It's-
Yeah,
it's-
but I can tell you that, powers to be think that we need to do both in order to make a significant improvement with, streets and chip seal. Say we need the revenue from both. I disagree with that. I think if, a sales tax comes in and people come to visit Overland Park, let's let them help pay for what we need to have happen. But not turn around and tax us on the other end as well, because now it's double taxation, in my opinion. And there's a lot of people that, seniors in our community, that you start adding more money into their, their monthly budget, they can't afford it. And now I know in talking with the city manager that there are some things coming up in July where there'll be special programs that will allow people that can't afford that to kind of opt out and do that. I don't know, it's in the process of being thought out and it happens in other communities. But I don't want to rely on it. I just think that our property tax is low. That's all you ever hear, is that our property taxes are the lowest. But you know what? You keep adding to it, it's not going to be the lowest anyway. And I think that we've done that for the last many years. And I just think that, revenue neutral is not something, that we should rely on. And we should roll it back. If we're gonna give you sales tax money, I think we need to roll back property tax. That's just my opinion, and that's what I'm.
Well, there's another aspect of this, and that is, this kind of puts Overland Park merchants at a bit of a disadvantage because isn't the sales tax for similar items different between, Overland Park and, for example, Roland Park?
Absolutely it is, and then you add to it, which was pointed out today, where we give CID and we start adding 1% here and there. You go to the mall, you're already paying an extra, 1%, 1.5%.
5, 2, 1.
Yeah. So you're paying extra there, and most people don't realize it because they don't look at it and compare what was the sales tax. I'm buying a new car and I can tell you, my car in Missouri. You know, and, yes, I gotta end up paying Kansas sales tax, but, you know, there's some other things that are cheaper in Missouri than in Kansas, so, you know, that's just the nature of the beast, and to your point, if I gotta pay an extra 2 or 3% every time I visit Overland Park. Yeah, maybe I'll go elsewhere.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's actually true. I think even with the 3/8, we're still lower than most other cities.
We are,
in
we
Georgia.
are
If you start,
not getting there anymore.
if you start putting in the CIDs, and we have a lot.
Yep.
You know, Corbin is 1.5%. Prairie Fire 1.5%.
Edison is two.
Pardon?
Edison is two. It's
Edison.
11.1%.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Blue Hawk is, if it's 1 or 1.5, but if you start adding up. People don't realize, like you said, people don't realize it, they're not looking at the receipt saying, why am I paying 1.5% more? But if you go shop at Sprouts versus, you're gonna pay more there than if you went to Penthouse across the street. You know, and I don't think people realize where that money is going either. That extra 1.5% isn't going to Overland Park.
It's going to
Going to some,
Yeah, it's going to developer under state laws.
but according to.
But so, yeah,
Well,
but
according to.
the statement I heard made was, we have one of the lowest sales tax, and they had that chart, that even with us, it bumped us up like
but they didn't
one
include that.
position or something. But no, it's depending on where you're shopping, it's not.
But Jeff, this is absolutely amazing. The previous council and also our mayor, sometimes they say, you're not giving anybody any free money, you're just reimbursing them for the cost. My reaction to that was that please reimburse me for my costs any day you like, I take that. There is this playing with the terms, which has been extremely annoying. At the end of the day, is a check to the pocket of some private entity, end of this. Now, let me finish this next one, please.
Sure.
So, a few slides, left. This is the program for the chips. This is what's gonna happen in the best scenario, this is what's gonna happen. It's out of our staff, there is no public information. So it says 40.1% reduction in employment. If everything goes on this trajectory, that means complete the stuff in half a century. Although that's not gonna happen, right? Because things get more expensive, does your sales tax exactly match that or not, we don't know. But just being naive, being happy, this is why I have had my objection. Yes, and again, Jim, I fully understand what you're saying, Chip City is one issue, but that's a pertinent issue to my ward, and that's what I have been hearing for the last 6 years I've been on the council, and the evidence to me for 6-7 years before. I have never had anybody send me an angry email other than Chip Seal, ever. When they Chip Sealed my neighborhood, they were like, what kind of representation is this? This is what's gonna happen, this is what you're gonna get. Next,
Whereas on your second bullet, I mean, that's really a hidden tax.
which one?
Requiring new residential neighborhoods to have concrete, the home builders are saying it's gonna cost home buyers $20,000 to $30,000.
That's what they said, they coming from that said it's gonna be about $23,000.
But it's a hidden tax on new home buyers.
They're gonna, I never understand. My conversation was then was why is the 600-700% profit in that? Why do you have to impose? Because they were saying about 3-5 grand and we're gonna charge about 40 grand for it, 30 grand for it. Why can't you at least just make it one-on-one or two on this? So, but they're like, no, that's our portfolio demands about 600% profit.
Did you guys get the vote on that? The concrete pavement?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, it's not.
No, I mean, I'm talking about the change in the residential program.
Yeah, we haven't voted on it yet. In,
Not for the developers, but for the actual change in Overland Park strategy of going from replacing a street with asphalt and cement curbs, cement sidewalks to all cement.
This is only about development. This is only about development.
I know this one is, but the city now is rebuilding
That-
roads no longer in asphalt, they're building them in concrete.
Right.
Did you guys
And that's a
approve
city
that?
decision, that's.
That hasn't been discussed either.
And it hasn't, the only time that's ever been brought up is at the developer meeting when we did it in Public Works. And it hasn't come to the council
That's
yet.
come to the council, and we haven't completed the city.
Right, we haven't obligated the city, it's just what they're doing, and I know that I've had a developer reach out to me, wanted to discuss the issue. It's coming, but we haven't done anything with it yet to make it a ordinance. But to be honest with you, it's something that we need to do, and they're just gonna have to suck it up.
Hey,
I guess I'm just-
reduction in 20 years?
I'm just saying, you know, the concrete pavement is great. While they're. Restoration, rehabilitation, reconstruction now is over how it's being done in concrete. And so you guys never were included in to drop asphalt and use concrete. If I understand what you're saying. The only conversation we have had has been about the project, because that's expensive.
Private developers, not with the city.
4 years ago, the cost of a residential concrete, the street in front of your house was $1.3 million per mile for it. And a thoroughfare was somewhere about $6 million. They're like, if you wanted to do it that. Wanted to replace it. In the front of your house was about $1.3 million 1 mile, 4 years. So next one, huh? I don't wanna just. Okay, and this is the. That table is by Terry, 40% increase in revenue. This table is the data I requested and it was sent to the. That's the. Tax and sales tax. This is how your property taxes have done. 2020 went up, down a little bit, then shoot up again. Sales tax. At 2020, we were panicking out our minds. That the park sales tax is gonna die. Old Park Mall is gonna go out of business. Nobody's gonna even sell a sandwich in Overland Park. And
Before I got there.
yeah, and then it didn't even dent and it went up. And that's the revenue stream line there. I was thinking of myself, like, what happened? People here didn't pay their property tax? Like, how could that dip? Or how could it dip?
Because the housing prices probably went
Did,
down.
what did they,
Everything went down, so
so they appraised our houses
Right.
much less in 2020? I didn't know
I will tell you that.
this much, they did increase. They appraised them.
The property tax or the appraisal rates, if I remember right. In Johnson County stayed pretty flat to a small drop.
What this had, what he had this, look at this.
I know.
This much, the appraiser went and told the guy, your house is not $500,000 worth, it's like $200,000 worth in 2020.
I don't know.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
Bro.
But in the house I own in Independence, it did the same thing, it dropped way down, I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty cool, that's when I bought it. And then all of a sudden it went up, you know, I went from like $600 a month and to $900 a month in less than 2 years. And
Because the
now-
property tax you don't pay it this year, it's gonna show up on the next.
It almost makes me wonder if those are flipped and that should be sales tax because people weren't going out as much during COVID. I wonder.
It says, this is.
I just wonder if those are
Maybe, that's a
flipped.
good point.
That would be my guess.
But anyways, it's, I mean, honestly, we are rolling with one. Next. Oh, and also, 1 second, $320 million in 22 budgeted revenue, 2023, $374 million. Okay, this is one slide sent to me, which says we are $100 million equivalent to about 50 years behind the stormwater management, by the way. So $100 million in the stormwater management, $330 million in residential street. Overland Park is close to $500 million behind obligations in public works. What policies brought us to this point? What policies we have? If we are going to implement a new policy, if you're going to ask for more money, you have to give me a different platform, a different way of doing it. Because I'm not only doing things for today, I'm doing things for the next 10, 15 years. $186 million, $65 million you want? How are you going to change it? And that pie chart I showed you does not seem like a radical thing to change the thing. It just seems like I wanna absorb this, so almost I could continue with the same thing. Let's go to the next one, just 1 second. So this is the root cause of this disease in the city of Overland Park. What brought us to this point in the last 10, 15 years is the enormous amount of money we gave away to develop. This table is until July 2019. I'm sorry, it's blurry here. $84 million, $74 million, $15 million. I'll put a better picture. Bunch of load of money was given away to all of these projects. Loss of revenue, clear cut. There is no reason to beat around the bush.
When you say given away, you're saying not collected.
Not collected, taxes written off, property tax written off, extra sales tax collected under CIP.
I just want everybody to know that.
Yeah, it's lots of revenue. These two tables is what we have approved in December 2019, which is out there for one project called Brook. Just one project called Brook. A $220, $30 million tax package given. Here it is. And then the mayor goes and says, oh, we haven't given it away yet, but we signed on the dots. And your grandkid is gonna pay it, and your grandkid is gonna drive on chips. So there is no defense that we haven't started giving it away. This is what you gave away. And it got me to $500 million hole. This is what you are doing today to me to get my kids to another $500 million hole. I have an objection to it.
Argument would be. We can give them that money, they wouldn't have built it.
Okay, so they built it.
So,
Wait, okay, you did this, if you wouldn't give it to them, the economic improvement, development of city of Overland Park would have suffered, okay? You gave me this proposal, you gave me this hypothesis for the last 4 years. You did it, right now I'm $500 million in hole. Where is the prosperity that you promised?
yeah, well, I guess that was about my next question to be. One, I question how many of those would have continued to still be built, maybe in a different fashion. But I look at Blue Hawk as a good example. We were promised an extension of the Cosmosphere. There's promised, a hockey, a rink, even a hockey team, I guess semi-pro, whatever, whatever it was going to. I remember Prairie Fire promising all these things, and even though the museum got built, it didn't keep the distinction of being tied to, what was the. New York, yeah. We hear all these promises, and I look at even Brookridge, I think, even though not a single building's been built, there's been like 8 amendments to the Brookridge document since 2015, when it started, or whatever it is. It seems like we get stuck in this thing where somehow if we don't keep giving them the money, they're not gonna build it. And, I look at it and say, when Corbin Park and Prairie Fire never should have been built next to each other, for one thing, but that's a different issue. But we gave a lot of money away, and none of them ever developed into what they said they were gonna be. And yet we put a lot of resources, a lot of money into it. And for the last, I saw a good quote that said, if developers don't feel that it's economically viable, they won't build it, no matter how much that's. And so, I did this looking into why we own a convention center and a hotel. Well, cities that typically do that, no private developer is willing to take the risk. They cannot prove that it's economically feasible. But yet the city was willing to take that risk. So it seems like even though we may not be on the hook for all this money or whatever it is, Starbucks, I know we're not on the hook directly, we're still paying for it as taxpayers in Kansas, but the point is, where do we believe anymore? I don't believe the developers, and I'm losing trust in the city that we know how to manage these projects. Look at it, and especially since we have no up-to-date information, I would like to know how much revenue was brought in by doing. It doesn't exist.
Well,
There is no such thing.
so kind of hitting on to one of your questions, though, I think part of the reason if you look at the convention center, and we've heard this, is there's a portion that goes to fund the convention center that's with fees of renting it, but then a big chunk of it is what we call TGT, transient guest tax. So you come in, you have dinner across the street, you stay at the hotel. So there is a sliver of that. So your point is, why wouldn't a developer want to do that? They would just get the fees directly to the convention center, which that deal wouldn't pencil. But adding in some of that transient guest tax, I think that and visit over park and some of that is why that's more of a municipal or a city activity. So,
Yeah, but I still have never seen a true P and L for the convention center and hotel. I had a conversation with one of the city council members when we went through the budget. And they told me that basically, because I brought up, couldn't we sell, instead, if we need money and we need to fund some of these major projects now. Even though, you know, why couldn't we sell the convention center and hotel? Use that funds to fund some of this stuff over the next 10 years. And I'm told that with the bonds that we have on those projects, we're upside down. And that the hotel required a complete renovation of the hotel rooms, which basically through that separate, I don't think many people realize this, through the separate entity that owns that on behalf of Overland Park. Even though we guarantee it, that they're basically have issued many, and I can't find that data, so I don't have the proof of it. But I would love to see somebody come back and show me over the last 20 years of that facility, how much revenue it has brought in and how much we think economic benefit has happened. Because my understanding, just like they said about Shield soccer fields, we have not driven the amount of tourism, the amount of outside dollars coming in and spending at hotels. I had a friend, David, opened a restaurant right by in that area of Coaches. Because he was told about how much money was going to be brought into the neighborhood, into the vicinity to Shield. He went out of business a year and a half after he opened it.
We gotta move on, because it's not about foundations.
and I do want to jump on one thing too. I think what's somewhat interesting is we talk about the three letters, you know, CIP or CID, you got TIF. So, during discussion of the budget, we were asked of how much in the 2024 budget goes to paying TIFs, and it's $700,000 out of the city of Nashville. So there's a lot of, are you looking at it glass full, glass empty, you know, glass half full?
Has been less now.
Yeah.
No question, has been less now. I don't doubt it, but wait until this guy gets fixed in here.
Yeah.
But that guy is coming. And look at this Shawnee Mission School District, okay, with just 1 second. Shawnee Mission School District, 35 million, project area 1, 27 million. So then Shawnee Mission School District needs to go and put a bond on it. Both of your school districts have bonds, right? They're paper. We give the money away, they're gonna put the bond. Look at the state of Kansas, when people say state of, oh, it's a state dollar, the state of Kansas, $28 million loss of sales tax. Okay, then the state of Kansas comes back to you and says, I'm gonna put a $20 million toll on your highway. Are you gonna give me $20 million? I'm gonna put the toll on. You don't have $20 million, they put the toll on your kids forever. And that's what exactly. Next one, please. Okay, this is the last slide. In my opinion, these are facts. Are they tight? No, because nobody can predict the future, but these will happen. Hey, Mark. Rejection. Not there. R&R every year increase property. And I and this gentleman have $50. He said, if they reject R&R, you give me $50. If they don't reject R&R, I give you.
Well, I will. I will tell you
We
that
never had that bid.
the staff recommendation, I do believe, will be that, we add to it. And I think our recommendation is gonna be not, and it's an election year, and I would hope that, we would, hold people accountable to how they vote for these types of things.
Constantly voting
And,
accepted and.
you know, there comes a point when too much is too much, to do with what we have. And, you know, like I told the city that we have, I understand holding money for recession and what might come up, and I fully agree with that. We gotta have some money in our coffers in case of emergency. But there, you know, if we're talking $6 million, then in my opinion, we can pull that out of our reserves and cover that for a year or two. In order to, give a break to those that need a break when it comes to property taxes. And plus, I'm not one that would tax on appraised value. I got some guy I don't even know coming to my house saying, oh, you can sell your house for an extra $50,000. That's great. Buy my house, you know what I mean? And of course, you get people that say, oh, yeah, we sell your house, right? That's not the point. The point is that we shouldn't pay on appraised value what we might get. We pay on what the house is worth. And I know they decide what that is and what we can get, but
So they want Chris to over you.
yeah.
Extra,
You're
this
on
is-
there.
This is what I have. Extra property tax for mental health unit. You guys are saying, you raise your property tax for a police unit using the mental health. Was it necessary to have that unit? Yes. But you raise your property. Toll on Highway 69 is taxed. It will be there for a long time. Tolls go up, they never. I was a recent immigrant to this country in 2001 in Boston. I was going through Boston Turnpike and Bostonians were telling me about this thing was supposed to come down 20 years ago.
I was there last month. I paid on the.
Yeah. Yeah, that's almost, it's like a historic thing, it's like an ancient thing.
So does it have a sunset?
On paper.
Yeah, but I can't understand if they, what would be the motivation of the state to cut the golden rules and stuff. Increased sales tax for infrastructure is in front of you. We pay about $165 million in extra sales tax in 10 years to get about 20% less chip sales. In 10 years. 20% less chip sales. How much is 20% less chip sales? It's somewhere about, if you say 200-mile lanes that they do, or 160, 70, 80 mark polygons, it's about 30 miles less. Next 10 years.
And I mean, going back to Jim's point, you know, it's that also there's bridges, there's other things. So it's not just.
No, but the impact of this amount on chips that are just. talking
Yeah.
about. I can say this obviously, right? What I'm trying to point out is that for $165 million more taxes in 10 years, you get 20% less chips over 10 years, which is equivalent to about maybe 30, 40 lane miles that otherwise would be chip seal, will not be chip seal.
So if I wanted to eliminate chip seal completely, I have to pay the 164 and multiply it by 4. But it doesn't.
Or 164, I mean, if you wanted to pay for everything else, or you dedicate more of this 164 to chip seal.
But the mayor brought up that he put $4 million of the money of excess property tax for last year.
Isn't all of that
Towards obviously, infrastructure.
all of that included?
You guys know how much of the sales tax that put towards the infrastructure? I mean, he talks about how much of the property tax, because people get focused in on that, but the bigger number is how much of the sales tax increase. And how much of that money was used to pay for the infrastructure. You can't, my point to the mayor at the meeting on the town hall when I talked to him, you can't keep building stuff without thinking about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. One, you got, like the arboretum, you're gonna have an increase in operating costs to maintain that, the new visitor center. At some point, you're gonna have to start putting capital improvement dollars back into it. Same with the convention center, same with the hotel, same with whatever you build, parks, whatever. Anything you build at some point in time, you need to budget for capital improvement dollars. And it seems like we haven't done that. I mean, I look at where the money is being spent today on infrastructure. Most of it is north of 95th Street. And south of 116, or let's say 159. And a lot of that has to do with the southern span, has to do with, the city and next, all the areas over the last 10 years, or however long that's been now. And now you gotta bring those roads up to the current standards. And that they're not cheap to do. When we annexed that property, did we not plan ahead for what that cost was gonna be? And if we didn't, why not?
Well, I don't think we did. That's why we're $300 million. You know, we have some failing structures, sewages and, storm drains and all that are failing. There that need to be fixed, but at the same time, you're right, with the arboretum, it's just like with farmers market, it's a perfect example. We figure we got $8 million in the budget, yet we come back with a plan that's 20-some million dollars, and now we're gonna sell city property, put up apartments more than likely. And around the farmers, because that's supposedly gonna generate business for the farmers. When, I just think that we don't stay within our budget. And yeah, we want the nicest of the nicest for Overland Park, but there comes a point when you can only spend what you have. If you want to build a shed in the back of your house and you got $4,000 to do it, you don't got to borrow another 10 and or build something that you got to make payments on. Because that hits your disposable income. We need to operate from that standpoint as well. To build what we can build. If we wanted to add for the farmers market, we get another 8 billion or another 10 million that we can put towards it. Let's make it nicer, build it in a way that we can add to it if we need to. But to just go out and constantly, everything comes in over budget, we accept it because we say, oh yeah, we all know things cost more tomorrow than they are today. And at some point though, we gotta be frugal with our money and put the money where it helps the residents. And to me, that's fixing the streets first and foremost. You're gonna get to the really nice arboretum, and I gotta admit, I've only been there once, and that was to see a half-done building. It's not my thing, but at the same time, I'm gonna get there on chip seal streets. So I don't know just how good that is. So at some point, we have to live within the budget, and that's what we're talking about today. Rather than living within our budget, we're trying to play catch up. We need to do something to catch up. I understand that. But at the same time, we're not getting guaranteed money to fix what our problems are, because there's no guarantee that all this money, other than a little bit, is going to go to chip seal on this new tax increase. You get property tax. We took 1% mill levy to go to the police department, and how much of that has actually gone to the police department? That I don't know.
And it wasn't even specific. We tried to make that near the specific.
We did, and we couldn't get it. We couldn't. So that's what I'm saying. I wish I could say to you, and this is what Jeff brought up, and I brought up, and we all talked about, was that if we're gonna do this, and we need to specifically say this is going to fix this. And I think people would say, yes, I want to fix it. But we couldn't get that to happen. It goes into a kind of a general idea from them. And now all of a sudden that money can go wherever, and there's nothing that legally says that it has to go to what they said it was.
There's one more problem I have recently come across based on one of our constituents, Michelle, bringing up. If you read the ballot, it says part of this fund could go to infrastructure. I have a problem with that language too. This was told as infrastructure specific money. That language, and I have to blame myself too, I don't know why. That didn't get more of a debate on it.
We didn't approve the
Why
language.
the language, why the language now initiates, go ahead, Jim, you have a very patient. But part of it, what about the other part? What if suddenly a administrator decides that part is 85%? Jim?
I appreciate what everything I've heard. I don't know why this information isn't widely available. why the citizens can't access this information easily. It's known, it's digitized. It seems to me like citizens ought to be able to gather this information and make a semi-informed decision. I include myself in that. Because I'm horrified to learn that we might be $500 million or $300 million in arrears or in issues. I mean, to me, that is a horrifying thing for a city this size and as prosperous as I thought.
The authority on it is here, Mr. Long.
For me, this, like I say, comes right down to the fact that the people that contributed to this fund are still in office. They're advocating for us, the citizens, to give them a blank check for $165 million. To your point, without really any specific detail in there. It's the timeline when it would happen, or where it would happen, or the benefits for the homeowners and taxpayers from this event. So what it really boils down to is something I think the Overland Park City Council is sorely lacking in, and that is one word: trust.
That's what this whole vote's about, to be honest with you.
That's
That's
the
how I.
exception of you three city council members and Scott. I don't trust anybody on the city council, least of all the mayor and a couple of his cohorts. Just leave the names out, but you know who I'm talking about. I wouldn't give that group, which couldn't manage a 91st and Glenwood intersection, turned into a roundabout, had 10 automobile wrecks in 2 weeks. And they said, we can't put $10,000 to put the signal back. Does any of that make sense to anybody? They probably spent $10,000 to take the signal out. Now, was it Overland Park's traffic department that said the signal needs to come out and the roundabout needs to go in? And 10 car wrecks later, it's a reverse course. I mean, to me, it's horrifying. And now, with one stroke of the pen, for a 10-year period, not a 5-year period, as all of the previous sales impact infrastructure for 10 years, $165 million is basically a blank check. And I don't trust the leadership of the city of Overland Park. I don't think I trust them with 50 dollars. Because obviously, we've been lied to. Obviously, these TIFs, these CIDs, whatever these things are, have not produced for the city. And I'm gonna say, as a personal note, I'm in close to 103rd Antioch, but I'm driving around the city all the time, and I'm beginning to experience horrible traffic jams on 135th Street. Horrible, down to one lane, what was 4, down to one lane in each direction, half a mile long, wait and line, and suddenly similar things are happening close to my house at 103rd between Antioch and Metcalf. Well, which I assume is sewers for Gerlach. And it's a 20-year project. I hate to live in a neighborhood where signs are posted every place. This is gonna close 6 weeks or, expect traffic delays, et cetera, et cetera. To me, this is complete mismanagement and lack of communication. Push your button, you communicate by email with the city, people in the city of Overland Park. We have a communication director. What does he or she do? And is this the lack of communication related to the tradition of Carl Gerlach did not communicate to anyone?
You guys all get the communication from Lori text about the town hall? Cause I did.
I heard people getting.
I think.
Yeah, I got a text saying, hey, we're having a town hall on this, and I got like several of them. I think they're trying to improve the communication. I don't know how they get your, probably because you call in, I don't know. I don't know. how
Voter
to get
rolls,
your
what someone
number.
told me. Someone told me voter rolls.
You
Voter
can
rolls.
vote Paul Lyons, showed me how to, or, told me how to sign up, like I just got, here's the agenda for the city council
Yeah.
meeting Monday, there's a public works meeting this day. You can sign up for all that, I did, and at least now I'm getting it, because I didn't know you could do that before.
And I got that from you I get it from the city, but I also got it from you on next door.
Yeah,
And, I think that's a great way to communicate. I'm on that all the time, but, I'm hoping that we can do a better job of communicating
You can't do a worse job.
everything. Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
that's the bottom line. You can't be worse than city of Oakland.
So we do the paper newsletters, there's the email newsletters. You're looking more specifics than,
Where are these email newsletters?
you can sign up on
You can
opkansas.org.
sign up,
Yeah.
yeah.
But then they also send
On the
the
OP
paper
website.
one as well.
They send,
sign up for getting notifications from the city,
Well,
and you can.
Hey,
Obviously, one.
but
I mean, I work, most of these meetings are held exactly in the middle of my work day. I mean, it's impossible for, if I want to be informed, I can't get informed. Because the meetings are held at 2 p.m. on the third Thursday of every month. I generally speaking cannot do that.
do not ever meet me with permission, motherfucker. I will kill you. I know your address.
well, I think Lori's trying to, communicate better. And I give her that, and moving forward, I'm pretty, I guess, encouraged by that. But, it doesn't change what's happened in the past, that's for sure, but past performance predicts future performance in a lot of cases, because we're not individuals that like change. But again, it's hard when, how are we gonna have change when nobody runs for office? And, it's hard to get people in there to do that. We've tried several times to get people to run and, couldn't get them to run, but, the bottom line is, if we're gonna have change, we gotta change the people running for office. And, there's one, Greg, thanks for being here, Greg and Roger and everybody. I mean, good that you're here, Jeff. So, Michael and Donna, so it's all good, but unfortunately, the time for that has passed and, so maybe we can work on it next time.
Well, I wanted to exempt you three and Scott, because I think you're working very hard for people like me and maybe everybody else in this room to bring some communication between the citizens and the elected officials in the city. I don't think we're there yet. But all along comes the sales tax that creates $165 million blank check. And then politicians say, costs.
You got a good point there. I can't argue that point. I
To me,
think
that's-
that's what this election's gonna be about is.
Well, I'm trying to
You
argue
trust
that.
us. No, I think you're right on, and that's exactly what I thought. And why people that I have heard that say no, because when they say no, it's about trust. When I get on next door and I see 45 people saying, I'm not voting for this, and this is why, it all boils down to, by the very end, it's about trust. And through their conversation, and I'm sorry that it has to be that way. But I hope that personally, that if, through my working with the people I work with and for my constituents, that you can trust. We may not always agree, but you can trust me that I'm gonna be open about it, we're gonna talk about it. And there are times when I vote against something, because that, or I vote for something, either or, because that's what my constituents have told me. And I keep it pretty good, I got a base that I deal with. to work for you, and I can lost that site. If I ever do, come knock my head. I won't put it.
I mean, more to. And the set that my city council members. told me.
Well, I
And
do.
wards 1, 2, and 3 are virtually.
So I heard, yeah. How many of you could,
Instead of 10 to 2, now it's at least mostly 7 to 5, or 8 to 4.
Amazes me, you know, you have a historic road right now. Right, a historic road. And I don't see the other people of the council having problems like this, or.
Because they know they think it's gonna be a slam dunk.
Well, but even if it was a standard, even if you want to talk for it, you have to communicate with your constituents and explain to them why you are for it. Well, we are here, we have been stuff before, and about this, I think, 1 or 2 more sessions, we'll have conversations, but I don't understand why the others don't. The ones who are for it, the ones who think it's the absolute necessity to be done. I didn't see a lot of town hall or communications happening.
Well, I agree. When I shared this with the people that follow me, I put in there, I want people that are for it and against it. I want to have a good conversation because I can learn from everybody. And I had a talk with the city manager. I listened in on the town hall meeting yesterday. I want to get all the facts I can, and, you know, so I want to hear both sides of the story because, you know, even within our base, we have people for it and against it. I want to hear both sides. How can I make a decision? How can I represent people if I don't know what they're thinking? But to your point, the people that are for it, you don't hear anything other than the mayor coming out. And, you know, I respect that. I think if someone's for it, you know, I'm for it if we lower the mill levy. Take care of the people, but if we do both, I'm not for it. I'm sorry, I'm done with taxes. And the well is dry, in my opinion, and that's what I'm being told. And we gotta quit going to the well, and we gotta find ways and different ways of, trying to save money here and there and get done what we need to get done. So, but we don't ever have that conversation.
And I find it discouraging that. I don't know if you guys, as the elected leaders of the city, knew that this thing had migrated from every 5-year program to a like a 10-year program.
Been 10 years. I think it's been 10 years.
For the last.
Last year, I'm about 10 years, but before that,
And it was renewed every 4 times,
yeah.
every 5 years.
Last time it was renewed, 2013.
Yeah, so
That's for
For 10 years. And anyway, my point was at one time it started out as a limited time frame.
because it was for something specific. And now it's like, we want it for specific, but it's being generalized.
Yeah.
And the more you generalize something, the less you get the specific fix. And that's where I'm at, you know, specifically infrastructure, but not mostly for infrastructure. I want it to be specifically, we tried that and we were turned down.
So you're talking about part of.
Yeah, part of it.
So that part of that point of language, there, trouble.
Yeah.
And the
And
balance.
it is about words, really. It is about words.
Absolutely.
And I'm learning that on the council, it's about words.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think back here when we went and looked at the landscaping and we looked at sidewalks being put in at someone's house back there. It was about words and it came down to about words. Am I right? About what soil means, is what topsoil means. Is topsoil what we consider topsoil that you pay money for? Or is it topsoil that came from somewhere else that looks like topsoil? Am I right? We went to his house and took a look at it. How's your yard, by the way? Okay,
No,
no, yeah,
no, it's like 30 says you get 6 inches of top soil. I did not get 6.
yeah, I know you did. not what I would consider.
Hopefully you pay for this $165 million on the green 6-inch. But, you know, I mean, our neighborhood volunteered to, in our letter to city councils, put on it as the public works chair, that we felt it was appropriate to hold off on doing chip seal this year in our neighborhood. One, we're against it, but we felt it was appropriate to hold off because, one, we're looking at traffic calming because of 139th Street.
Yeah.
139th will need to be rebuilt because of the 69 highway project anyway, because it's gonna be, that bridge is gonna be expanded, that's currently more like a tunnel now. And we felt that it was from a fiduciary responsibility, why spend money on chip seal and, you know, and doing all this other stuff, when the other side of our neighborhood got mill and overlay back in 2021. Why not hold off for a year or two during the 69 highway project, not spend the money, fix a couple of the problem areas, which they're gonna have to do anyway before they do the chip seal. Why not at least do that minimum amount of work? And then revisit the whole thing in a couple of years. And it's like, sorry, the ball's already, you know, this ball's already rolling downhill. We have a budget approved, we can't stop it, which to me also says it's short-sighted on the part of the city staff to say, we think that's a reasonable recommendation, we would recommend that we postpone that work. And yet, it was like, once the money was decided to be spent, let's spend it. You know, but I have a question for you guys, and I think it's an important one. You know, it sounds like Armageddon will happen if this does not pass. Not only do we not get the additional 2/8 cents, we lose 1/8 cent. I would like your guys' thoughts on that, because I will share my opinion. One is, I think if it gets turned down, I think there's an opportunity to go back and readdress it with a sales tax again, but in a way that does dedicate money to certain areas, fill in, make up for what didn't happen in this ballot. But I also think that it's going to put a lot of pressure on, if it doesn't get passed, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the city and you guys to prioritize. And I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing. But really look at each individual dollar, look at every asset the city owns today and say, is that asset giving us the return on investment that it should? If not, what do we do about it? And, you know, just like if you were running a business, you would do that, right?
Right, you would.
And so I guess I turn it over to you guys to say, what do you think will happen if it doesn't get passed? And if you're
So-
not in the know yet.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So that's why I voted for it. So I voted for the sales tax. And I think if it doesn't pass, I think a couple things could happen. One is there is time before 2024 where we could put something else out, another vote, put it on the November ballot, do a mail-in. But my understanding is there is more runway. So could you do another 3/8? Tighten up language? Could you go back to the 8th we had previously? Could you go up to a half and really, you know, what Councilmember Cox had proposed and include chip seal? So there is an opportunity for a second sales tax vote. So that's one. Two, you could continue the reduction in spend towards public works, which I think would be an absolute disaster. Three, you could cut elsewhere. My worry is when you cut elsewhere, so much of our budget is staff salaries. And so we look,
71%.
yeah,
But it's of that discretionary portion.
yeah. So, and you look at that 71%, Scott was talking about fighting for first responders. We got additional funding for police. We got additional funding coming in online now for fire. And that's important because we were losing first responders to other cities that are nearby.
Plus officers short and the people we were losing
Yeah.
to other departments has shrunk. I mean, it's to the point now where we're at least equitable. And I think that, the holes have gotten smaller if you get my dream.
So-
But it seems like that discretionary budget, the part that's not a part of compensation related to people in seats. Continues to grow. I look at priorities within that and saying, you really need to spend, they can say 7.8 million in farmers market, all in costs, over 10 million. Do we really need to spend 27 million on arboretum? I know there was funds in there that came from non-contribution. and those kind of things. But, did you really have to build a Taj Mahal or visit with something? Do we really? We're gonna be spending $2 million in the next couple of years, and then another $2 million in the next couple of years, redoing all the soccer fields, again, at Shields, replacing all the turf. Have we looked at where that money is going and saying, do I really need to spend it there? The Sister City Park, which has not been built, allocated at $3.9 million. Is this and the mayor said it's gonna be a lovely park, he told me that. So all the parks are lovely, but do we really, and the neighbors really want it? Well, I mean, good, but neighbors really want good streets to walk on, they want safe sidewalks. I'm on 33-year-old streets and sidewalks. I don't feel safe. My wife tripped the other day. We had a, gap that big in the sidewalk. A lady in our neighborhood fell on the sidewalk, had to be rushed to the hospital because she fell flat on her face, an elderly lady walking the dog. Good thing one of our neighbors saw her happen. She fell on an uneven part of the sidewalk. We want safety. It's not just fire department, police department. We want that. Firmly, Scott, from my wife retiring from the city. I want safe streets. I want safe. You can't even bicycle in the bicycle lanes on our streets because they're so bad. And yet we had a lot of money put into, I think it's 500,000 for Levon's residential area connector streets that have bike paths. Because a survey said that's where we lacked as a city. We didn't have enough bike lane miles. So there was a big discussion about how do you fix that, what you guys got on board.
Well,
And, all that stuff is good, but at some point, if we're not gonna have that discretion, and I really focusing on discretionary, you gotta prioritize.
and it's funny you say that. I think of something that Councilmember Cox said. We were voting on making a new fire station solar. And, and I think what Councilmember Cox said, these are the kinds of things at the end of the year, when we say we don't have money for roads, that we're voting for. It's like, sure, I get it. I think I had like a 23-year payoff. And, and there are definite, environmental benefits from it. And there's a lot of good reasons. The third most important things in the Overland Park survey was that we needed to be more green and had to think more about climate change. And so that passed. But I remember Cox saying, we're not going to have money later because we spent this, because there's so many things that people want, discretionary. You come back and then you go, all right, well, I guess we don't have money for bridges.
Results of this.
Yeah.
Like the positive actions. I go to Hy-Vee, I go to Sam's Club, I go to other places, and hopefully this will change. I'm not anti-electric vehicle, but I never see anybody parked in those. And yet the city wants to add some to Shields, they want to add some to, wherever they have a place to add it, they want to add them. And I think give away free electricity, which I hope is not a cost of anything, we should have a surcharge. On the electricity by giving them convenience of being able to park it, Shields for the day and charge your vehicle. To ride home. But yeah, there should be almost a profit motive, like any other.
Well, it needs to be. I mean, the stupidest thing I ever heard is let's build up electric charging stations and not charge for it. Well, why don't we get the business of doing a gas station so I can give you free gas? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And when we talk to a fellow councilman about it, it's like, well, we gotta have electric cars, we gotta have this.
Cool.
As he plugs his car in for free at scale every time he comes to a meeting. So, I don't get that. If we're gonna build it, I'm all for it. Let's build it. We're gonna charge for it. And we're going to make sure that we get our just due that pays off the cost. And maybe electric vehicles is the way to go. I know mine's kind of a offset hybrid, the one I'm buying, but I don't have to plug it in, that's for sure. So, but that's just.
So I'm forgetting, I mean, I didn't mean get you guys off that track.
I just don't, I don't think it's happened. I don't,
We didn't even
I
bring
don't
it
buy
up. We didn't even bring it up. We brought it up under the condition we charged for it. I think was how we went ahead with that, but we'll see how.
different. In one, the straight answer to your question, I don't think an Armageddon is gonna hit. If this was rejected. I don't think so. And I'm not, again, I have said this repeatedly, I'm not saying anybody vote yes or no. But my prediction is that, an Armageddon is not gonna hit. By the essence of being a government, if they wanna do something, they always make it look like if you didn't do it, the sky is gonna fall. No, 300, remember, one more time. We are dealing with a $370 million budget. We are dealing with a budget which went from 320 to 370 in 1 year. There is, and I absolutely think there is a lot of fat there to cut. And we can, if there is political will to do it, we can do it.
It's more close to go to 430 next year. 430 million next year.
Yeah, exactly. That's the proposal. Mark?
Yeah, we talked about with 70% of the budget is salaries and staff. Well, here a few weeks ago, it was decided to get rid of, to stop doing food inspections. And a city employee do those food inspections, or restaurant inspections. And so the comment was, well, this person can do other duties. But wait a minute. What, that should be examined. I mean, what other duties should that position have been cut? If you follow up, I mean, positions being cut, so that means we should have one less person in the department. I'm wondering over the years that we've hired staff to address a problem that was at that time. And I believe that the head of these different departments are protective about their budgets. And it could be that maybe there's certain positions that need, or could be trimmed, or don't do as much as they like before. And I just wonder, and I'm just kind of off the subject from what you all were discussing, but I'm just wondering, we're looking at 70% there, why don't we examine what, they say we got the same amount, with the right amount of employees compared to other cities and blah, 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 if you know what I'm talking about. But I don't know, it just seems to me that with the new city manager, we could go in and just justify the positions that we have. Like I said, I think it's just a little off the cuff to say, if they're deleting that service, that position to me should be deleted.
And I'm on the committee that actually, they thought they needed to hire a new, and so rather than hiring a new staff member, then they repurposed that. So it wasn't kind of a build it and they will come thing. It was, they weren't getting everything done that they needed to get done. And so that was the alternative.
But that's not how they presented it. They presented it as a duplication of effort.
Sure,
And if they knew anything about food safety, I will tell you that one person, and he said there were 700 restaurants, Jack did, said there were 700 restaurants in Overland Park. That's not 700 restaurants. You got Casey's, you got Quick Trip, you got anyone that serves food needs to be inspected. And I can tell you, after being in that business for 47 years, I tried to explain this on the dais. But I will tell you that the bottom line is that guy could not do all that he was assigned to do. They didn't train him. They said he wasn't trained. Yeah, maybe that's a reason to eliminate the position, but I think that puts Overland Park in a precarious position of food establishments not being inspected. And they inspect what you expect. And as a restaurant owner and running restaurants for almost 50 years, I can tell you if an inspector doesn't come, things go by the wayside. And I tried to explain that, but I think it's a big mistake. And I think it is. And when I said, well, let's train the guy, well, they didn't want to spend the money to do that either. So, what's that say about the mentality of safety in the city of Willoughby Park, especially when it comes to food safety. Restaurant owners don't want somebody to come inspect them, most of them. I always welcomed it because sometimes I'd miss something. But the bottom line is, that's the mentality of, we're not gonna do it right, so let's eliminate it. Well, same thing with chip seal, same thing with, it permeates throughout everything. If you're not gonna do it right, don't do it halfway. Let's fix it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fix it. Chip seal is a fix of the problem. We're doing it halfway and we need to do it all the way. And we need to bite the bullet for that and come up with the money to do it, to take care of our constituents. I don't want it any more than you do. And it's funny, but my apartment complex, they didn't chip seal. If it was a good process and it was well worth the money to do, you'd think that a major developer would have chip sealed, but instead he did mill and open, nobody would write that. So, exactly. So, anyway, we gotta fix the issues. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that we need to find a way to do it with the money that we have. And, is it gonna be a catastrophe? I don't think so. I'm like Ferris. I think we'll come up with the money to do what's right. I'm hoping that we would do that. I think Sam said he's a little naive and trusting in some folks, and so am I. I think people do the right thing, and I know Ferris beats me up about that. But, I don't think it's catastrophic. I think we should, in my opinion, we should have made it very specific. But that doesn't mean it's not gonna be good for us. It just means that we got trust that our city is gonna do the right thing with the money that they're asking. And that's the biggest thing that I see right now, is are we gonna trust the city to do what they say they're gonna do? And then this is gonna be the tell-all. And we'll see how our residents feel. That's why I wanted to do a ballot. I'd do a ballot on chip seal. And let's end it. Let's put it to the people, and if people say, and I hear it all the time, well, I just love it. Well, that's one person, and he lives next door to somebody that's on the city council. They vote for it all the time. So that's just my point. So, anyway.
There is one more comment, and then we're gonna end this session.
So if anybody, those guys have questions,
Anybody online wants to say something, go ahead.
raise your hand.
Sam is at the control room, and we have 6 minutes left, 4 minutes left for the room reservation. If not, Jim, go ahead for now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and patience. And I'm not a naysayer. I like Overland Park. But to me, the public face of Overland Park these days, 95th in Quivira, 103rd in Quivira, 119th in Quivira, Antioch, 95th, 103rd, 119th, College Boulevard. The public face of Overland Park now is people begging for money at every single one of these friggin' intersections. They come right up to your car, often out of your view. To me, this is formula for violence, not just crime. But you read about it every day, a homeowner shoots somebody on their front porch. Now, if they happen to have a gun in their car and they're approached by somebody from behind, to me, that is a tragedy. And this is one of the most distressing and frightful things that I see developing in the city of Overland Park. And it's at every single intersection. I live close to 95th and Metcalf. That is like trying to cross an interstate highway. There are drifters on every corner. And they dart across the street. They run down the lane of cars. I mean, how is this an allowable, legal?
If they disturb the traffic flow, the police can intervene. If they
Other
don't,
than it's not illegal.
police can't. But if they disturb the traffic flow, what police?
I see this every place I go in Overland Park, and I see it elsewhere. I see it sometimes in Prairie Village. I don't see it anywhere. But to see it everywhere. And it's frightening to me. And I'm not frightened by people approaching my car. I think I can take care of myself. There are women that probably don't share that fear. And the consequences might be that they, for example, stop shopping in these places where they are at risk. And this is especially true in the summertime when people might be driving with the windows down.
I've seen that.
And I don't hear anything out of the city of Oklahoma Park. Nothing.
There's one group of them in Kansas City, Missouri side, they have a picture of a kid on a billboard and they say it means bone marrow transplantation. For the last 5 years. It's the same picture on the same billboard. One day I genuinely pulled over and I said, listen, which hospital is this kid in? And they just ignored me and walked with.
At 131st and Quivera, there's a family there almost every day. And every time you go into the shopping center, it is all over. And but you know,
It's a growing phenomenon.
yeah, and it's not illegal
It's not illegal.
So you got, unless.
Okay, freedom of
as
speech.
long as they don't interrupt.
Unless they disturb the traffic.
Yeah.
If they run across the lane,
And that's like city.
that's,
So you're looking for a legal reason to intervene with police.
so yeah, if they run across and the lanes.
Yeah.
They run across the lanes to come to your car, that's problem. But if they stay in the median and they just hold the sign.
That's called freedom of speech.
But I'm doing it next week. They come and approach your car.
Oh, no.
Yes, well, that's how Sam got elected. He had a picture of himself up there and say, vote for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Greg, thanks for being on the call. I know you can't talk, but.
I think
good
we
that
need
you
to
were
give
there.
a special hand to two residents of Leewood who are here today. You guys are a rich cousin, you know, we like to be like you. We love to be like you.
Still wish he would have run.
I asked the mayor to go to look at this house after the 151st. And